Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Thanks to the amazing team over at Bombusby. In today's video we're going to be checking out the all new Dreamstar Toys Slingshoot, also known as a stylized MP version of Slingshot. And yes, this guy will in fact actually combine to form the third party Superion. Now for those of you looking to add this guy to the collection, he is currently available over at Bombusby. So for that of course I shall include a link down in the description box below. And as always I'd really appreciate it if you guys could all smash that like button, and as always please feel free to let me know down in the comment section below on what you think of both the figure and the review. Now very quickly going over the box art, you can see a fantastic product shot of Slingshot himself. I actually really love the way this guy's turned out. To me at least, it appears as if though Dreamstar Toys are essentially giving us the Aerialbot had they appeared in the live action movies. This is a really awesome realistic take on these characters, and I cannot wait to see how the rest of the team shapes up. As we take a look at the back of the box, you can see we have a whole host of images showcasing the robot mode from pretty much every single angle. We've also got some images there of the jet mode as well as the included display base, and an almost teaser image there of the Superion combiner arm, of which actually looks really awesome. So without further ado, let's crack open this slingshot or slingshoot and see how awesome this figure has actually turned out. And here we have the third-party Slingshoot cracked open and out of the packaging, and as he comes packaged here in his robot mode. Now the actual design itself, much like I mentioned in the opening segment of this video, I actually really love the way it looks. It's an incredibly realistic take on the Aerialbot, something of which up until this point we haven't truly seen, and considering this is the first entry into this line, this guy is definitely leaving a lasting impression with me. Now sadly he's not without his flaws, and I'll definitely be sure to go into them during the video, but I can definitely assure you guys that there are certainly a lot more positives here than negatives. One of the main positives being the astonishing amount of detail that we've got going on for this figure. So you can see there in regards to the head sculpt looking really awesome. Once again, an incredibly realistic take here on the G1 Slingshot. As we take a look here at the torso, you can see the paintwork just across the board for this figure is immaculate. Almost every single area of him has either been fully decked out in gunmetal, silver, gold or red, and I absolutely love the way it looks. Even here for the torso region, you can see there's some really nice subtle details, and the same can also be said here for these sections, and that metallic red just truly pops. While sparingly used, I think it's been used incredibly effectively, and one of my favourite aspects of this guy has got to be the transparent plastic that we've got going on here for the almost turbines. This looks really awesome. You can see the sculpting and detailing embedded underneath that. Even here for the forearms, the design is super complex as you would expect from maybe even the Bayverse, however has an elegancy to it of which almost matches the Nightverse. I just think that looks so nicely done. Really amazing attention to detail as well as paintwork. And even as we take a look here down to the lower section, you can see the thighs picked out there in a wicked metallic silver, and the overall design as well as colour scheme that we've got going on here for the shins I think too also looks really impressive. And I love how the almost back section of the jet mode does become the front portion of the foot. That looks really nicely done. Now as we spin our attention here to the back, this is where all of the wings are in fact actually compressed. To be honest, I don't really love this design. It can be a little finicky and not everything stays tabbed in too well. For example, these almost missiles here, they don't really actually have a place to store, and when you are in fact actually articulating the figure, these definitely can become very annoying and at least to me do get on my nerves. So what I tend to do is either hinge them out to the side or just basically flip them so that we can get them in a slightly more straightened angle, as if you keep them as per the instructions you can see that they are permanently fixed at this almost angled degree, which personally whilst looks good I just think practically isn't the best. And in terms of back kibble, I actually think this figure cleans up pretty damn nicely. Now in regards to articulation, the head has got a fantastic range, so it can tilt here left to right as well as of course hinge up and down and rotate the full 360. These sections are in fact completely made out of die cast, which is awesome, and they are indeed on a double hinge joint, which allows them to get out of the way so that you guys can of course manipulate the arms forwards, backwards, as well as hinge them up and down. We do get a rotation here at the bicep, a double joint at the elbow which can bend way past 90. Whilst the fingers look fantastic, sadly the actual practicality of them is flawed, at least here on my copy. They are super skinny, and the joints on mine did sadly break. You can see here how one of those loops has indeed actually begun to stress and break. So I personally wouldn't recommend actually messing around with these too much. Whilst they look great, sadly they just do not appear to be holding up all that well, but all of them are fully articulated, I believe, at 3 points. So here at the thumb we've got a ball joint as well as a hinge joint there at the middle and then at the knuckle, and the same can also be said here for the rest of the fingers. We also do get a rotation as well as a hinge joint back and forth. Here for the torso, considering this does encase the elbow joint for the combined form, we're getting an astonishing range. So the actual torso itself can tilt side to side, which is awesome. If we take this panel and lift this up, it does allow for a fantastic crunch going forwards, as well as going there all the way backwards. We also do get the standard waist rotation. These skirt pieces can hinge out of the way to allow the legs to kick forwards that far, as well as back all the way out to the sides. Rotation at the thigh, as well as a double jointed knee, which can bend to a fantastic degree, and you can see how these pistons almost work in sync with that motion, which is a really nice touch. And then here for the foot, to be honest, it's more of just an ankle rocker pivot. You sadly can't really tilt the toe forwards and backwards. So overall, in regards to articulation, I definitely think that it's more than adequate. Would have I maybe liked to have seen a slightly better range where the ankles are concerned? Definitely, but other than that, I cannot really fault this guy at all. Overall, I think he looks really, really cool. Now, in regards to accessories, we do in fact actually get a pretty decent amount. So firstly, here we get 2 blasters. These have been sculpted and painted, at least where the tip is concerned, pretty nicely there in a gunmetal. They can be held into the figure's hands. However, once again, it is an incredibly loose grip. So just to demonstrate that, you can see how we've got these tiny slots that this tab here will peg into, and it just does not hold in there at all. You can see how it's incredibly loose and floppy, and considering the ball joints of the fingers aren't the tightest, it really doesn't take much to in fact actually knock the gun out of place. So that is definitely something I wish they would have maybe tightened up before putting this guy into mass production. We also do get included a really nice display base. Now this of course plays a more vital role when we get this guy transformed up into the jet mode, but you can see the base is just completely cast out of black plastic, but it's got some pretty nice detailing. We do in fact actually get an LED here. Sadly, it's only activated via a magnet, and I have no magnets to hand, so I won't be able to demonstrate that in the video, but this section does illuminate, and I do believe the eyes also do too possess an LED function. You can see we get this massive transparent rod, which here for robot mode does peg straight there into the butt section of Slingshot, and it actually makes for a very nice display base. And we also do get a second attachment for the jet mode, of which I'll demonstrate later on in the video. Here for a very quick comparison, we've got the Dreamstar Toys Slingshoot compared next to the official Takara Tomy MP44 Optimus Prime. So at least in regards to scale, he's most certainly going to match up with the Masterpiece figures, but just in terms of a design, you can see how it is incredibly more complex when in comparison to some of those G1 offerings. So personally, I'm not entirely sure as to how I am going to incorporate this guy in the display. I imagine I'll probably pack him in with some of the live action movie characters, but then in some regards he's almost too simplistic to match with those live action movie figures, so we'll no doubt, until we get more of the Aerialbot, look rather out of place. So having covered pretty much everything here for robot mode, let's delve into the transformation. So to begin with, what I personally like to start off with is taking these sections here, hinging them open, and then in regards to these pieces, we just hinge this down, rotate this piece, and collapse that down just like so. You'll then want to rotate the fully compressed fingered fist so that the front is now facing the back, and then what we'll do is just hinge this entire section in like so. Come here to the bicep, take this double joint, and basically just compress it in upon itself so that this circular section does almost slot here into this piece. We'll then come to this side and repeat the same process. So hinge all of this down, rotate this section here outwards, rotate the fist, and just compress that section in. Take the elbow joint and just wriggle that all the way up to the top. We can then spin our attention here to the back. You're going to want to take this piece, and you'll notice how the wings are indeed tabbed in via this slot. So just disengage this, come to this side and repeat the same process. And then basically we can now take this entire section here and just fold that down there to the back. Now, an area of which personally I am not a huge fan of at all and really wish it was better engineered would be the removal of these pieces. You essentially have to rip them out of the joint, and I'm really not too sure as to how the plastic's going to hold up over time. So just to demonstrate as to what I'm talking about, basically you can see this circular tab is pegged into an almost screw hole, but at the same time it's also tabbed into a slot here. So you have to sort of pry this section here out. It's just so cringeworthy to do, and as you see, basically just rip the thing clean out. So rotate that section down, come to this side, and here's hoping that it will be a little easier to do. Just kind of pull that section out like so. Really dislike this entire portion of the transformation. We can then just take that, fold that section down, Come here to the tip of the nose cone, which too also has some really nice sculpting and detailing, and just untab that like this. Another area of which personally I'm not too keen of is that basically you have to take this front nose cone portion and pull it forwards. Now, whilst it's very simple to do, you can see that it is held on via this very thin piece of transparent plastic. I'm really not too sure as to how that's going to hold up over time, but just pull this section forward. What we can then do is rotate the arms upwards like so. Take this section, pull this forwards, and then hinge this all the way up and over so that we're left with something along the lines of this. And then this section here will just sit like so. And then in regard to the arms, you are then going to want to collapse these in. And you'll notice how we've got some tabs that will peg here into these slots. So snap that section into place, come to this side, snap this section in as well. For some reason, this one is creating a little bit of fuss, but just snap that in there. We can then, once again, keep these turbines out for now, as you're going to want to lift this entire section over. And then these panels are on double joints. These will come all the way around until they meet in the middle and snap there into place. Once that's all concealed, we can then take the nose cone and shift this down. You can see how basically you're going to want to ensure that this panel is pushed back as far as it will go, otherwise it will obstruct you actually compressing the nose cone. And even then, it takes a lot of force to actually wriggle this section down. We can then conceal these panels just like so. Take these sections here, just collapse those in upon themselves, and then these red pieces will just hinge ever so slightly into the middle just to conceal this hollow gap. So make sure that these here stay out. We're then going to want to take these skirt pieces, hinge these forwards, and rotate them like so. Just like this. We can then come here to the back. You'll notice how we've got a slot that will just overlap onto that tab. And the same can also be said here for this side. Now, in regards to the transformation of the legs, this is easily the most frustrating part of the conversion. In particular would be where the combiner hand is concerned. So for this, what I would recommend doing would be to detach these sections just like this. You'll also notice how we've got a hooking system. You want to detach that, and then with this, fold this in upon itself. Now for this region, you'll want to take this and slide this here over the top of itself, and then come to this side. And it's slightly different due to the asymmetrical design. So for this, you're going to want to collapse this in and then take this and snap that in so that these two tabs are fulfilled via these slots, and then detach this, fold that section out for now, and then tuck that in here just like so. We can then come to the inside of the legs, detach these panels, and then detach these panels, and they are on extendable joints, so just extend these here out of the way for now. Personally, once again, I'm not a huge fan of the design of the knees, and it really doesn't help that the instructions are absolute garbage. So for this, what you have to do is, instead of just pulling outwards, you actually have to slide this section here over the top. And first time round, I pulled it outwards, and as you can see, I did indeed actually snap one half of the tab off. Luckily, it doesn't in fact actually affect the solidity in the robot mode, but that is definitely something to watch out for. So you have to slide this up and over the joint instead of just pulling clean out. Come here to this side and repeat the same process. So just slide this section here out, which will then allow us to bring these panels here all the way down. So just fully extend those, And then here you'll just want to take this tab, hinge that out like so, ensure that that's straightened, and then just collapse all of that in upon itself. Repeat the exact same process for this side. So take this tab, fold that down, and then just slide all of this down for now. Just lowering the camera down slightly so that we can see everything that's going on. For these particular pieces, you can see how we've got a circular tab that's going to peg into a slot here on the inside. So just align that up appropriately, snap that into place, and ensure that the knee pad is fully compressed and that it almost, in fact, actually tucks under this section. Come here to this side and repeat the same process. So collapse that knee pad and just snap, and then just slide that under. We can then flip here to the top, and for this you're going to want to take these tiny panels, fold those sections out, come here to this side and repeat the same process. We can then take these, fold those under, and then these here are going to come all the way around, and then this here will come up. Now for these grey sections, for jet mode, you are going to want to rotate those so that we're left with something along the lines of this. Come to this side and repeat the exact same process. So hinge that down, snap that into place, extend this middle wing, and then just rotate that section there. We can then come here to the feet. Now once again, this truly is the more finicky aspect of the conversion. So you're going to want to rotate this portion of the foot around and repeat the same process here for this side. Hinge this out of the way so that we can see what's going on. And these fingers honestly are such a pain to actually tuck into this cavity. So the best way that I've found is if you fully straighten them out and then collapse them down. And then here at the wrist, you are going to want to take this and shift this section so that it's dead in the middle. Once that's done, we can then snap that into place, and here you'll notice that we've got various different tabs and slots that you'll just want to combine, but the biggest connection of which you have to ensure is tabbed in is this one, and to be honest, this is by far the most difficult one to in fact actually get locked together. So just persevere so that it is fully connected. We can then take the wrist, hinge that down, take this here and tuck the thumb into that tiny hollow space that we have. Ensure that it stays tabbed in. Snap that in there. And then this section here will come up and over. We'll snap there into place. And with a bit of luck, that entire region should stay fully tabbed in. So we can then take these sections and combine these halves. So just snap that there into place. Snap these wings into place. And then you'll see here that we've got two tabs that will peg into these two slots. So just bring this up and over, snapping the entire rear of the jet. Into its proper configuration. And then for some finishing touches, luckily this is the most easiest part of the transformation. You're just going to want to take this, hinge this to the back, rotate this section around, rotate the wings around, and then just extend all of these panels here out. And then come here, snap all of this together. We can flip here to the underside, rotate and snap a bomb there into the wing, and come here to this side and repeat the exact same process. And then these are going to tuck underneath and snap into place. And then it is really just a matter of straightening all of this out. And with all that being said, here we have Slingshoot fully transformed up into his pretty awesome looking jet mode. I believe this is supposed to be a Harrier jet, not looking too bad at all. However, I must say that personally I find the transformation to definitely be a little frustrating. In particular would be where the tail end of the jet mode is concerned. It took me so long to really get the gist of where that combiner hand should end up, but once you transform him a couple of times, it's pretty straightforward. You can see as far as detail is concerned, not looking too bad. Sadly, there doesn't appear to be any internal cockpit detailing. It merely is just the chest section of the robot mode, but considering this is a combiner, I can completely excuse that. You can see the elegancy of the front of the jet looks pretty decent. I love the sculpt work that we've got going on here for the turbines. These are in fact, as mentioned in robot mode, completely made out of die cast, and we've there got that transparent section with some really nice sculpt work underneath. As we just take a look at it here from a bird's eye perspective, definitely resembles a really nice Harrier jet. We've actually got some missiles and bombs attached here to the side of the wings. I'm not a huge fan of how the wings are completely panel layered, and sadly they don't in fact actually lock into place. So it really is just a balancing act of getting everything as straightened out as you can, and it definitely can create for a slightly jagged and unsightly look. So I do wish that some of these panels could in fact actually lock into place, but that really is just nitpicking. You can see here for the top some pretty nice details. As mentioned in robot mode, I think the paintwork across the board is immaculate. Literally this thing's been painted head to toe in metallic silver, and as we take a look here towards the tail end of the jet, you can see how this all cohesively comes together, and actually it doesn't look too bad at all. Even the undercarriage kibble for a transforming jet I think is definitely one of the better that personally I've seen. Now as we turn it here to the underside, we've got so much landing gear. So we've got some landing gear here for the wings, so these are very easy to deploy. We can just hinge those sections up like so. We've got landing gear here at the front, and these ones are slightly more difficult to get to. So personally I like to bring out the aid of a screwdriver just to hinge these sections up, and all of them can in fact actually roll. So if we just prop this here along the ground, you can see all of the landing gear in full use, and I think that is a really nice touch. Now as mentioned previously, we do in fact actually get a display base. Personally I think it plays more of a vital role here in jet mode than it did in robot mode. So in order to in fact actually display in robot mode, it was shown with the stand in fact actually being pegged in this way, but for jet mode you are going to want to pull this section out, reverse it, and tab it in here. And there is a reason as to why they've decided to do that. We're then going to want to bring in this secondary attachment. You can see how it looks more like a hook when in comparison to the port that we saw in the robot mode, and basically this will tab into the slots that are underneath this section of the landing gear. So you will have to extend this out in order to in fact actually attach this. So just snap that section in, and of course port that there into this cradle. I'll be sure to rise the camera up in just a second, but in regards to Slingshot's blasters, these do in fact also tab into some slots here on the base, and there you have Slingshot utilizing the flight stand. Now I actually think this is a really neat touch. You can see I'm pretty certain you guys could get some really cool dynamic poses out of this. This looks really awesome. Sadly, the actual cradle itself doesn't allow you to rotate it left to right, and I really think that would have been the icing on the cake, but considering that it's cast out of transparent plastic, I'm pretty certain that maybe would have made it prone to breaking. Now, before we wrap with the video, of course, considering this is a combiner, Slingshot does in fact actually have one third and final mode, of which I'm really excited to show off to you guys. So in order to in fact actually get to this, to begin with, what I personally like to do is just take the wings and untab those, just hinge this section up and rotate this section here around like so, and then the wings also will flip. So whereas you can see that we've got this underside, you're basically going to want to flip them so that we've got this side now showing. We're then going to come to these sections, untab and untab that, flip here to the underside and take these sections and just try your best to wriggle those out, just disengage them from their locking mechanisms, which will then allow you to take this entire lower portion and in fact actually extend this all the way down. So this is the main elbow joint for the combined form, which is a really neat touch. Now you're definitely going to need the aid of a screwdriver for this. You can see we've got these tiny little almost spring-like details. You are indeed going to want to take these and just hinge them out to the side. They're incredibly stiff So just hinge them out like so. There is indeed a ratchet joint tucked away in here. However, no matter how much I've tried to pull it out, it just is not budging at all. I don't know whether I'm missing something, but it appears to be super wedged in there. So for the purposes of this review, I'm in fact going to leave it be, as I just do not want to cause any unnecessary damage to the figure. But just note that there is a ratchet joint that you will of course use in order to attach it onto the torso. Once we've now brought these sections out, we can then bring the arms back down, and all that really changes is that this time round, this tiny port will also be fulfilled via this section. So lock all of this in, but just ensure that that does peg into that circular section. Come to this side and repeat the exact same process. So bring all of this down, snap that section in just like so. We can then flip here to the top and then just push these panels back where they were originally. In regards to the wings, this once again is something which can get slightly difficult, so just hinge these sections out of the way. You'll then want to take the missiles, hinge them out to the side, which will reveal a tab, of which is going to peg into this slot here, and then just compress all that, come to this side and repeat the same process. So hinge that there out to the side, snap that section in, and then just compress, and you'll notice how these sections will almost soft tab over those mushroom pegs. Once completed, we can then just take these bigger bombs, angle them like so, and here you'll notice that we've got these tabs that will peg into these tiny little slots here on this transparent section. Now, I would not recommend pushing them all the way, as you will take this piece clean off when you do in fact actually transform him back, and considering there's a transparent plastic, you definitely don't want to cause any unnecessary pressure. We can then take this section here, fully extend that up until it does snap into place, and then extend that up, snap that into place, come to this side and snap that section into place. Once again, these bombs sadly don't really have anywhere to tab into, they just sort of rest there into place. Then we can come here to the lower section of the forearm, rotate at this joint so that we can in fact actually hinge this back and forwards. You'll then want to flip here and split all of this, so snap all of that apart just like this. Take these panels, fold them in upon themselves, and repeat the same process. We can then fold all of this up, take this section, rotate it like this, hinge that out to the side, snap this in there, and then this panel, much like robot mode, will in fact actually conceal within this almost hollow space. Repeat the exact same process for this side. So rotate this section like so, hinge this out to the side, snap that there in upon itself, and much like the previous side, just snap that section there into place. Then we flip here back round to the front, and as mentioned previously, this definitely, at least for me, is one of the more difficult aspects of the conversion. So you're going to want to angle this section here out, and then in fact actually rotate half of the wrist around just like so, and extend all of the fingers. We can then take the wrist joint and slide that forward until it clicks into place. And then here with this, you're not going to want to rotate this section, but in fact actually rotate this section, which will allow this piece to slide down this, and you can see how we've got a slot that will peg into this tab. So just snap that there into place, come to this side and repeat the same process. So rotate this section around, slide it through that cavity, and then just snap that there into place. And then for some finishing touches before we proceed to combine the two halves, you are then going to want to take this section here, rotate that until this does snap into place. Now sadly on this particular side it always has a tendency to pop off, so definitely be cautious when in fact actually transforming this figure. Also snap that into place, make sure everything is locked where this is concerned. So just flip here to this side, make sure that everything is tabbed together. And now, basically, much like we saw earlier on, you are just going to want to combine the two halves just like so. And there we have what I imagine will be one part of the Superion combiner. Here we have one of the combiner arms, and this actually looks awesome. A really, really massive piece. This is definitely going to be one of the biggest third-party combiners, at least, that I personally have ever collected. You can see that in regards to detail, it's actually going to look pretty impressive as well. The finger sculpt looks great. The articulation appears to be pretty decent. You can, in fact, actually hinge this here back and forwards, as well as rotate left to right, and will no doubt, in fact, actually come with a massive weapon. As you can see, we've got this huge hollow port here, and he doesn't, in fact, actually come with any huge gun. So we're definitely going to see more weapons included when we get the other aerial bots. And here, for a combined mode comparison, I've decided to bring out the Masterpiece Optimus Prime, just as I know there'll be some out there wondering how this Superion is going to stack up alongside some of the Takara offerings. And you can see that the arm of Superion in itself is, in fact, bigger than Masterpiece Optimus Prime. So I can only imagine how the torso is going to turn out, as well as the legs, as all of them are going to have to be bigger than the arm itself. We're definitely dealing with an enormous piece, and to be honest, in regards to just the detail alone here for the arm, it's also going to be an incredible showstopper. And so, some final thoughts for the Dreamstar Toys Slingshoot, also known as a stylized version of the Aerialbot Slingshot. I think this figure, for the most part, has turned out really nicely, especially for the first release for this company. I really do think they've done a smashing job. In regards to the actual design in itself, considering I'm a huge fan of the live-action movies, the more complex surface detailing, the more alien-looking design really does appeal to me. I think it looks fantastic. Not to mention that the figure has literally been painted head to toe, of which makes this by far one of the nicest looking third-party pieces I own in the collection. The articulation is definitely pretty decent. I would have loved to have seen a much greater range of motion where those ankles are concerned, but other than that, I think it's pretty much flawless. The build quality isn't too bad. However, I will mention that the fingers in the robot mode definitely are on the more fragile and flimsy side, and to be honest, I would have definitely rather had them maybe reduced the amount of joints that they packed into those fingers, or maybe much like 3-0 had just given us swap out hands, as overall I definitely think they're going to have a tendency to break. It's also not great that the guns cannot be properly attached into the hands. It literally takes next to no force at all in order for them to sadly just fall out, and even on display I wouldn't mind betting that they do just literally fall out on themselves. Transformation from robot into jet mode is pretty straightforward. The entire tail end of the jet definitely took me quite a lot of time in order to get the hang of, especially where the actual placement of the combined hand is concerned, but once you get the gist of it, I think it results in a pretty nice jet mode. I definitely would have liked more locking mechanisms where the wings of the jet are concerned, but other than that, I think it looks pretty nice, especially for a transforming jet. 9 times out of 10, the majority of the robot mode kibble does hang on the underside of the jet, whereas this one is pretty clean. And in regards to transformation here to the combined form, much like the jet mode, it definitely has some fiddly aspects, but once you get the hang of it, it isn't too bad. Sadly, I have still been unable to, in fact, actually get the shoulder ratchet joint out of its compartment. I will no doubt eventually get around to doing it, but it, to me, just requires a little too much force, and I personally am willing to, in fact, actually implement onto the figure. But the combined mode arm looks great. It definitely makes me super excited for how the inevitable Superion will turn out, as this is really nicely detailed, pretty well articulated, and is a massive looking piece. So really cannot wait to see how the rest of the aerial bots turn out. And the display base as well is also a really nice touch. So with all that being said, I believe that just about wraps up my thoughts here for Slingshoot. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you guys think that the stylized design is in fact something that looks good? Are you not perhaps a fan of it? And also be sure to let me know on what you think of the review. This guy is currently available and in stock right now over at Bombusby, so if you are looking to add him to the collection, I will of course include a link down in the description box below. And as always, I thank you all so much for watching. Until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.